The dining room at Dad's house felt smaller than usual, cramped with tension and the weight of conversations I'd learned to avoid. Thanksgiving dinner had become an annual exercise in endurance since Dad married Christine 3 years ago. She sat at the head of the table opposite him, perfectly coiffed in a cream cashmere sweater, discussing the family's financial future as if I weren't sitting right there. "Michael needs to understand the business better if he's going to inherit it someday," Christine said, cutting her turkey with precise movements. My half-brother Michael, now 22 and fresh out of business school, nodded eagerly from his seat beside her. "Absolutely," Michael agreed. "I've been reviewing the expansion plans for Thompson Construction. The new equipment loan will let us take on those municipal contracts." Dad looked pleased. "The $2 million will cover 3 excavators and a crane. With that equipment, we can bid on the city's infrastructure projects." I kept eating quietly, the same position I'd occupied at these family dinners for years. Since Christine entered our lives, I'd become a tolerated guest at what had once been my family table. "It's wonderful to see Michael taking initiative," Christine said, her tone warm with maternal pride. "Some children understand business responsibility naturally." The pointed glance she threw in my direction wasn't subtle. It never was. "Dad's worked so hard to build Thompson Construction," Michael said. "I want to make sure it stays in the family for generations. Which is exactly why we need to be smart about inheritance planning," Christine continued, setting down her fork to address the table directly. "Richard, we need to discuss your will again." Dad looked uncomfortable. "Christine, maybe Thanksgiving isn't the time." "Actually, it's perfect timing." She looked directly at me for the first time during dinner. "Emma needs to understand her place in this family's financial future." I took another bite of stuffing, saying nothing. Experience had taught me that engaging with Christine's inheritance discussions only made them longer and more painful. "You don't deserve family money," Christine declared, her voice rising with conviction. "Real children get inheritance. Michael is Richard's son and my son. You're just a complication from a previous marriage." The words hung in the air like smoke. Dad stared at his plate, unwilling to contradict his wife but clearly uncomfortable with her directness. "Mom's right," Michael said, though he had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "I mean, Emma's been out of college for 5 years and she's still renting that tiny apartment. She works at some nonprofit making what, $30,000 a year? She's not exactly contributing to the family's success. Whereas Michael has his MBA and a clear vision for expanding the construction business," Christine added. "When Richard retires, Michael will take over operations. It makes perfect sense for him to inherit the company and the assets." I nodded slightly, acknowledging that I'd heard their position. This wasn't new information. Christine had been making variations of this argument for 3 years, ever since she'd discovered that Dad's original will left everything to me as his only child at the time. "The construction industry requires serious capital investment," Michael continued, warming to his favorite topic. "The $2 million equipment loan is just the beginning. We'll need working capital, expansion funds, maybe acquisition opportunities. That money needs to stay in the business, not get divided up among people who don't understand the industry." "Exactly," Christine said. "Emma works for some environmental group, for goodness sake. What does she know about running a construction company?" "It's habitat restoration," I said quietly. "We restore damaged ecosystems." "See." Christine gestured as if I'd proven her point. "Playing in the dirt for $30,000 a year while Michael is planning to expand Dad's business into a multi-million-dollar enterprise." Dad finally looked up from his plate. "Christine, Emma is still my daughter." "Of course she is," Christine said with false sweetness. "But Richard, you need to think practically. Michael will carry on your legacy. Emma will, well, she'll continue doing whatever it is she does with plants and animals." My phone buzzed on the table. I glanced at it. First National Bank. I let it ring. "See." Michael pointed at my phone. "She can't even afford to keep it on silent mode. Probably bill collectors." Christine laughed. "Or her landlord asking about rent money." The phone buzzed again. First National again. This was unusual. Banks didn't typically call repeatedly on Thanksgiving evening unless something urgent was happening. "Emma," Dad said, "maybe you should take that outside." "It's probably nothing," I said, but the phone was ringing a third time. "Answer it," Christine said impatiently. Maybe it's your nonprofit telling you they can't afford to pay you anymore. I answered the call, putting it on speaker since everyone seemed interested in my financial business. Hello, this is Emma. Ms. Thompson, this is David Martinez from First National Bank. I apologize for calling on Thanksgiving, but we have an urgent situation regarding the Thompson construction business loan. Dad looked up sharply. That's my loan application. I'm sorry, sir, the bank representative continued, but we've had to deny the $2 million equipment loan application. The co-signer withdrew their guarantee this afternoon. Dad's fork clattered against his plate. What do you mean withdrew? I thought the loan was approved. It was conditionally approved based on the co-signer's financial guarantee. However, the co-signer contacted us this afternoon and formally withdrew their backing. Without that guarantee, Mr. Thompson's business doesn't qualify for the full loan amount. Christine was staring at Dad in confusion. Richard, who was your co-signer? You never mentioned needing one. Dad looked genuinely puzzled. I don't know. The bank said someone with substantial assets had agreed to co-sign, but they wouldn't tell me who. They said it was arranged anonymously. The bank representative cleared his throat. Actually, sir, I can discuss that now since the co-signer has withdrawn. The guarantee was provided by Thompson Environmental Solutions, LLC. The table went completely silent. Thompson Environmental Solutions? Dad repeated slowly. Sir. An environmental consulting firm with assets exceeding $12 million. They provided the financial guarantee that made your loan possible. Michael was Googling frantically on his phone. Thompson Environmental Solutions. Here it is. Leading ecological restoration consulting firms specializing in large-scale habitat restoration projects. Net revenue $8.2 million annually. Christine was staring at the phone as if it might provide additional explanation. But why would an environmental company co-sign for a construction loan? Ma'am, the bank representative said, the co-signer was quite specific about their relationship to Thompson Construction. They indicated it was a family business consideration. Dad looked across the table at me with growing realization in his eyes. Emma, what exactly do you do at your job? Habitat restoration, I said simply. But what's your title? I was quiet for a moment. Founder and CEO of Thompson Environmental Solutions. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. Michael's phone slipped from his hands. You own Thompson Environmental Solutions? I founded it 4 years ago, right after college. We started with small wetland restoration projects and grew from there. Christine was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. But you said you worked for a nonprofit. No, I said I worked in habitat restoration. You assumed it was a nonprofit. Dad was reading over Michael's shoulder as he scrolled through search results. Emma, this says your company has completed over $50 million in restoration projects across 6 states. We've been busy, I said. But your apartment, Michael said weakly. Your car. You live like you're broke. I live modestly because I reinvest profits back into the company and land conservation. Thompson Environmental Solutions owns 2,400 acres of restored habitat that we maintain in perpetuity. Christine was frantically Googling on her own phone now. There's an article here from last month. Thompson Environmental Solutions awarded $15 million federal contract for Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. Emma Thompson, CEO, photographed with the Interior Secretary. She held up her phone, showing a photo of me in a business suit, shaking hands with a cabinet secretary at what was clearly a high-level government ceremony. That's the largest single restoration contract in the region's history, I explained. We'll be restoring 800 acres of damaged lakefront ecosystem over the next 3 years. Dad was still processing. Emma, if your company has $12 million in assets, why didn't you tell us? I tried to, I said gently. Remember last Christmas when I mentioned landing a major federal contract? Christine said I should focus on real business opportunities instead of playing with plants. The memory hit the table like a physical blow. When I brought up expanding into wetland restoration consulting, Michael said environmental work was just a phase, and I should consider serious career paths. Michael was reading more search results. Emma, there are dozens of articles about you. Rising star in environmental consulting. Young CO transforms ecological restoration industry. Thompson Environmental Solutions. From startup to industry leader. But you never corrected us, Christine said, her voice small. I tried to share what I was working on. Every time I mentioned a new project or contract, someone changed the subject to my lack of direction or unrealistic career choices. Dad was shaking his head slowly. Emma, you co-signed my business loan? Thompson Environmental Solutions provided the guarantee, yes. Your expansion plans are solid and construction and restoration often work together on large projects. I thought it might create collaboration opportunities. You guaranteed $2 million for my business expansion while we were sitting here talking about excluding you from inheritance? Business is business, I said. Family relationships are separate from financial decisions. Christine was reading her phone with increasing horror. Emma, this article says Thompson Environmental Solutions was valued at $18 million during your series of funding round last year. We didn't take external funding, I corrected. That valuation was for insurance and partnership purposes. The company is entirely self-funded. Self-funded how? Michael asked. Reinvested profits from consulting contracts. The first wetland restoration project paid for equipment and staff. Each subsequent project funded expansion. Compound growth over 4 years. Dad was quiet for a long time, staring at his phone screen. Finally, he said, Emma, the bank representative said you withdrew the loan guarantee this afternoon. Yes. Why? I looked around the table at their faces, Dad's confusion, Michael's shock, Christine's dawning realization of how badly she'd misjudged the situation. Because this afternoon, before dinner, Christine called me to confirm that I understood I wasn't included in the family inheritance discussion. She wanted to make sure I knew my place in the family financial structure before we all sat down together. Christine's face went pale. I was just trying to be clear about expectations. You were clear, I said. You made it very clear that I'm not considered real family, that I don't deserve family money, and that my career choices make me unworthy of inclusion in family financial planning. Dad was staring at Christine in disbelief. You called Emma this afternoon? I wanted to avoid awkwardness at dinner, Christine said defensively. By telling her she doesn't deserve family money? Richard, you know what I meant. Emma chose a different path. Michael is committed to continuing your business legacy. While Emma was quietly providing the financial guarantee that made my business expansion possible, Dad said. The irony was sinking in. Christine had spent dinner explaining why I didn't deserve family financial support, while I had literally been supporting the family business with a multi-million-dollar loan guarantee. Emma, Dad said quietly, what happens now? With the loan? First National will probably offer you a smaller loan based on Thompson Construction's assets alone. Maybe $800,000 instead of $2 million. You can still expand, just more gradually. And the collaboration opportunities you mentioned? I considered the question. Thompson Environmental Solutions had been awarded several contracts that required construction work. Habitat restoration often involved earth moving, water management, and infrastructure development. There are possibilities, I said. The Great Lakes restoration contract includes significant construction elements. Shoreline stabilization, habitat creation, access road development. If Thompson Construction is interested in environmental construction, there could be substantial subcontracting opportunities. Michael's eyes widened. The $15 million federal contract? Among others. We have 3 major restoration projects starting next year that will require construction partnerships. Dad leaned back in his chair looking overwhelmed. Emma, I owe you an enormous apology. You don't owe me anything, Dad. Yes, I do. We all do. You've built an incredibly successful company while we treated you like a failure. You were supporting our family business while we discussed excluding you from the family. Christine was crying quietly into her napkin. Emma, I'm so sorry. I completely misunderstood your situation. You made assumptions based on what you could see, I said. I don't live a lifestyle that displays wealth, so you assumed I didn't have any. But why? Michael asked. Why live in a tiny apartment and drive an old car if you're worth millions? Because the money isn't for me, I said. It's for the land. Thompson Environmental Solutions exists to restore and protect damaged ecosystems. The profits go toward acquiring more land for conservation, funding research, and expanding our restoration capabilities. You're saving the environment, Dad said, realization dawning in his voice. I'm trying to. Climate change, habitat destruction, species extinction, these are urgent problems that require immediate action. Business profits are just a tool for funding solutions. Christine looked up from her napkin. Emma, can I ask you something personal? I waited. Do you resent us? For treating you so poorly while you were actually more successful than any of us realized. I thought about the question while looking around the table. Dad, who had worked hard his entire life to build a construction business that employed 30 people. Michael, who genuinely wanted to honor his father's legacy. Christine, who had been trying to protect her son's future in the only way she knew how. I don't resent anyone, I said. Success looks different for everyone. Dad built a solid construction business that provides good jobs and contributes to community development. Michael has legitimate business skills and genuine enthusiasm for expanding the company. Christine is protecting her family's interests, which is natural. But we dismissed your work, Dad said, because you didn't understand it. Environmental restoration isn't a visible industry. We work in remote locations, our projects take years to complete, and our success is measured in ecological outcomes rather than financial returns. Until now, Michael said, still scrolling through articles about Thompson Environmental Solutions. The financial returns enable bigger projects, I said. But they're not the goal. Dad stood up and walked around the table to my chair. Emma, can I give you a hug? I stood up and hugged him, the first genuine physical affection we'd shared since Christine joined the family. I'm proud of you, he said quietly. I'm sorry it took me so long to understand what you were building. Dad, your construction business matters too. Community infrastructure, job creation, economic development, that's important work. Maybe, he said, but habitat restoration might be more important for the long term. Christine approached us hesitantly. Emma, is there any way I can earn your forgiveness? And maybe learn more about what you actually do? I looked at her, really looked at her for the first time in 3 years. Behind the defensive positioning and maternal protectiveness, she was just someone trying to navigate a complicated family situation. Christine, would you like to visit one of our restoration sites? I think you'd find the work interesting. Really? We're starting a new wetland restoration project next month about an hour from here. It's a 200-acre site that was damaged by industrial agriculture. We're bringing it back to native prairie and wetland habitat. Michael joined us. Emma, could I visit too? I'm curious about the construction aspects. Absolutely. Environmental restoration involves significant earth moving, water management, and infrastructure development. There might be partnership opportunities between our companies. Partnership opportunities? Thompson Environmental Solutions has more restoration contracts than we can handle in-house. We need reliable construction partners for the infrastructure elements. Thompson Construction could specialize in environmental construction, a growing market as more organizations invest in ecological restoration. Dad's eyes lit up. Environmental construction. That could be a whole new business line. The federal contracts alone represent hundreds of millions in construction work over the next decade, I said. Climate change adaptation, ecosystem restoration, green infrastructure, it's a massive emerging market. And Thompson Construction could get in early, Michael said, his business school training kicking in. With the right expertise and equipment, which is exactly what you were planning to buy with the loan. Dad sat back down looking thoughtful. Emma, would you consider reinstating the loan guarantee? Not as family obligation but as business partners. I considered the question. Thompson Construction was a solid company with good leadership and growth potential. Adding environmental construction capabilities could benefit both businesses. Under different terms, I said. Instead of a simple guarantee, Thompson Environmental Solutions could provide the $2 million as a direct business investment. We become minority partners in Thompson Construction's environmental division. Meaning, we help you develop environmental construction capabilities, provide training and certification support, and guarantee subcontracting work. In return, Thompson Environmental Solutions gets 25% ownership of the new environmental construction division. Michael was calculating quickly. With guaranteed contracts from your restoration projects? Multi-year contracts. The Great Lakes restoration alone would provide 2 years of steady construction work. Dad looked at Christine, then at Michael, then at me. Emma, that's incredibly generous. It's good business. Thompson Construction gets the capital and contracts needed to expand into environmental work. Thompson Environmental Solutions gets a reliable construction partner. Both companies benefit. What about inheritance? Christine asked quietly. I was quiet for a moment. Christine, I don't need Dad's inheritance. Thompson Environmental Solutions generates more revenue than Thompson Construction. But I would like to be included in family discussions, even when those discussions involve topics I'm not directly involved in. You want to be treated like family, Dad said. I want to be treated like someone whose opinions and experiences might occasionally be worth considering. Christine nodded slowly. I owe you much more than an apology. You owe me the chance to rebuild our relationship on better terms. I'd like that, she said. Michael raised his water glass. To family business partnerships and environmental construction. We all raised our glasses, even Christine managed a genuine smile. To understanding each other better than we did this morning, Dad added. As we cleared the dishes and prepared dessert, the conversation shifted to practical planning for the business partnership. Michael had dozens of questions about environmental construction techniques. Christine was genuinely curious about habitat restoration processes. Dad was excited about the possibility of adding environmental work to Thompson Construction's capabilities. Emma, Dad said as we loaded the dishwasher, can I ask you something? Of course. Are you happy? With your work, your life, the choices you've made? I thought about the question while rinsing plates. Dad, I wake up every morning knowing that my work helps restore damaged ecosystems and protect habitat for endangered species. I solve complex problems that require creativity, scientific knowledge, and business skills. I'm building something that will benefit the environment for generations. That sounds like happiness. It is. The financial success enables bigger projects, but the satisfaction comes from knowing that the work makes a difference. I wish I'd understood that sooner. You understand it now. That's what matters. 6 months later, Thompson Construction's environmental division had completed its first restoration project, a 50-acre wetland restoration that included shoreline stabilization, native plant installation, and wildlife habitat creation. The project came in under budget and ahead of schedule, establishing Thompson Environmental Construction as a serious player in the regional restoration market. Michael had completed environmental construction certification and was managing the new division with genuine enthusiasm. Christine had joined the board of Thompson Environmental Solutions as a community outreach coordinator, helping secure local support for restoration projects. At our second business partnership review meeting, held in Thompson Environmental Solutions' new conference room, Dad reviewed the financial results. Environmental construction revenue. $2.3 million in 6 months, he said. Project completion rate, 100%. Client satisfaction scores, 98%. Emma, this partnership has exceeded every projection. The market demand is even stronger than we anticipated, I said. Climate adaptation projects, ecosystem restoration, green infrastructure, there's more work than we can handle. Michael looked up from his project management software. We have contracts booked through next year, and 3 federal agencies want to discuss multi-year partnerships. Most importantly, Christine added, the environmental impact data shows measurable improvement in water quality, soil stability, and native species populations on every completed project. Dad smiled. Business success and environmental benefits. The best kind of success, I said. That Thanksgiving, exactly 1 year after our family crisis, we gathered again around Dad's dining room table. But this time the conversation was different. Thompson Environmental Construction just won the state's largest wetland restoration contract, Michael announced proudly. $8.7 million over 3 years. The habitat restoration work is creating real biodiversity improvements, Christine added, consulting her tablet. Waterfowl populations on our completed projects have increased by an average of 340%. Dad raised his wine glass. To family businesses built on mutual respect and shared values. To understanding that success has many different forms, I added. To environmental construction, Michael said with a grin. To second chances, Christine said quietly. As we clinked glasses, I reflected on how much had changed since the previous Thanksgiving when I'd been told I didn't deserve family money. The business partnership had been successful beyond anyone's expectations, but more importantly, our family relationships had been rebuilt on foundations of mutual respect and genuine understanding. My phone buzzed with a text from our project manager. Great news! The Department of Interior wants to discuss a $25 million multi-state restoration initiative. Thompson Environmental Construction specifically requested as lead contractor. I showed the message to the table. Looks like we'll be busy next year. Good busy or stressful busy? Dad asked. The best kind of busy, I said. Solving important problems with people I trust. And for the first time in years that included my entire family.